Well, I think the real question should be asked is what planet do you live on to where the United States' greatest ally, the UK, refused to support the United States of America's positioning to open up the Strait of Hormuz and to support UK. It is you who need the oil, not the United States of America. It is you who need to make sure that that strait is open. But yet we are risking our soldiers. We are helping the millions upon millions of Iranians who are thanking President Trump for coming to their rescue and removing that evil regime. Even right now, and I spoke to the president a couple of days ago about Iran, and even now, the very fact that their leadership is all in chaos just shows once again why it was good that Donald Trump, President Trump, acted upon that. So it's challenging when the UK refused to send naval support. It's challenging, and again, what planet you living on when our greatest ally refused to help us when we needed them. But
welcome to Justin Speaks. I'm Justin, and this is my very first video on this channel. I'm doing this because I love this country, and I am tired of watching it go in a direction that makes no sense to me. I'm tired of watching people embarrass us on the world stage. I'm tired of watching blind loyalty replace common sense, and I am tired of staying quiet about it. So we are starting right here, right now, with one of the most embarrassing displays of Trump worship I have seen from someone who calls himself a man of God. Pastor Mark Burns, Donald Trump's faith advisor, just got on British television, insulted the King of England, told a British journalist he might be a little slow, accused the entire United Kingdom of loving dead Iranians, and then got hung up on live on air. Hung up on by a journalist who had simply had enough. And honestly, I do not blame him one bit. This is what blind loyalty to one man looks like when it escapes into the real world. This is what it sounds like when a pastor forgets every value he is supposed to represent the moment his president needs defending. I'm Justin. This is Justin Speaks. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay locked in because the full breakdown is at the end and we are just getting started.
What did you make of that speech from the King?
Well, I think it's a historic moment, again, to reestablish the relationships, the bumpy relationships with your current prime minister and President Donald Trump, just to continue to remind the world that we are our two greatest allies and to continue to build on that relationship so that we might continue to make America great again and make UK great again.
Well, I think the UK is already great, frankly, but there we go. Do you not think, though, that there were some fairly direct messages to the president in parts of this speech? Do you think he will heed those messages?
Well, again, it's already clear that, and I don't think the UK is great again. I think the people are great of the UK, but I think you're going into a very dangerous direction. And I think many in America believe that. But the reality of it is, UK has always been our greatest and oldest ally. And it is important that, we share so many of the same messaging. Naturally, your prime minister and even your king have done some things that has been very challenging to us Americans in regards to the direction that you're taking your country. But the reality of it is, this was a good day to continue to build upon our previous strong relationships. And yes, some of the things the king said, I believe, were unnecessary. And that he really needs to, again, stick to kissing babies and also being the head of the Christian church. I remind him.
I'm sorry. Don't be so insulting to the king. He made a very, very thoughtful speech there with some important messages, particularly around our collective security. And you resort to an insult about he should stick to kissing babies, grow up.
I think you confused my statement, and I'm sorry you may be a little slow in what I'm saying. I'll speak slower so you can understand, because what I said was not an insult at all. I think, again, I made it very clear that this was a great day for Great Britain and for the United States. I think this is a beautiful thing. It's an honor that His Majesty took time out of his schedule to come to the United States of America. It's a beautiful thing, and I think that this is the kind of the unity that we need to continue to build on. There are some policies that you are having in your country that is challenging to us conservatives here in America, but that's neither here nor there. Again, so I'm sorry you must have misunderstood what I said as an insult. It wasn't an insult. He is still the head of the Christian church in the UK. He is the head of the Church of England. And to many Christians in the UK are challenged or disturbed that his actions have seemed to be belittled the Christian faith while promoting other faiths, while he is still yet the head of the Christian church. But it's an honor that he came to the United States.
Sorry, he spent a substantial section of his speech reaffirming his Christian faith and explaining why it's important not just to him, but to our country, to your country. I'm not quite following you about how he's sort of tried to undermine it.
Well, again, I'm not speaking specific to the speech. I think the outcry of American Christians and the outcry of the UK Christians previously has caused His Majesty to echo his strong sentiments of the Christian faith. And that's a beautiful thing. That's what we wanted to see. That's what we want to hear. Again, that is more so for the Christians in the United Kingdom. Who felt very strongly that their king, the head of the Church of England, has diverted from, promoting the Christian faith in the UK. But again, I think it was a beautiful thing. I think to see all of the great supporters who were there to support His Majesty, the King, what an honor. I do hope to get to meet him myself, especially when I come back to London. And so to be able to continue to preach prosperity and unity amongst our two countries. But again, there are some challenges that's still there, especially with your prime minister, but hopefully we can get them worked out.
Well, I'm no fan of our Prime Minister, but the insults that Donald Trump has doled out to him ever since the attacks on Iran have been utterly despicable, not the sort of thing that you would expect from the head of one state to the Prime Minister of another. And then 3 days before this visit takes place, we have administration officials, apparently with the endorsement of the White House, saying that President Trump is calling into question UK sovereignty over the Falkland Islands. And you think, well, on what planet is that an appropriate thing to do 3 days before the King of the Falkland Islands visits this country?
Well, I think the real question should be asked is what planet do you live on to where the United States' greatest ally, the UK, refused to support the United States of America's positioning to open up the Strait of Hormuz and to support UK. It is you who need the oil, not the United States of America. It is you who need to make sure that that strait is open. But yet we are risking our soldiers. We are helping the millions upon millions of Iranians who are thanking President Trump for coming to their rescue and removing that evil regime. Even right now, and I spoke to the president a couple of days ago about Iran, and even now, the very fact that their leadership is all in chaos just shows once again why it was good that Donald Trump, President Trump, acted upon that. So it's challenging when the UK refused to send naval support. It's challenging, and again, what planet you living on when our greatest ally refused to help us when we needed them. But yet, trust me, when it comes time for the UK to need us, the United States of America will be there.
The fact is that Britain has come to America's aid on many occasions in the past. President Trump didn't even seem to know that we did after 9/11 on Afghanistan. It is for sovereign nations, whether it's Britain, Germany, France, any nation, to decide whether they are going to take part in military action. Now, I happen to disagree with our government stance on this, but I fully respect our elected government's right to make that decision. And
sure.
I mean, as you well know, there have been occasions when America has done things which haven't been to the advantage of our country. But these alliances, they are formed over decades, not temporary sort of years, and they have to endure if our collective security is to endure. But that doesn't mean to say that when Donald Trump says jump, we just say how high. International relations don't work like that.
Well, you're speaking about the Trump Derangement Syndrome that you clearly have, and many of those in the UK have. We're not talking about Donald Trump. We're talking about the government of the United States of America. President Trump is the elected commander-in-chief but the government of the United States of America.
Absolutely, I fully recognize that.
So you're talking about Donald Trump, and you're talking about his personality. You never met the man, but you're talking about his personality.
I haven't mentioned his personality.
He says how high. That's a Trump Derangement Syndrome mentality. We're talking about the security of our two great nations, and the reality of it is, you are part of NATO, and so when the United States, who is a member of NATO, needs or requesting help, you should in return
an organization which
save
President
millions
Trump
of Iranians
consistently
who are
undermines.
dying at the hands of the evil regime. And thanks to President Trump, they are now in a leadership situation to where things are falling apart internally in their own nation, and that gives an opportunity for democracy and the beautiful people of Iran to rise to the situation.
It's the same regime. The regime, the personalities.
If it was the same regime, their Navy would still be existing. Their Navy doesn't exist. If it was the same regime, their Air Force would exist. Their Air Force does not exist. If it's the same regime, the same Iranians are now saying, we want the Strait of Hormuz to be opened up, but we have an internal leadership issue. That was not the same under the former Ayatollah. No, he's been eliminated. And all of the generals have been eliminated thanks to President Donald Trump. And remember, I don't understand the real question we should be asking: why does the UK love Iranians being killed by this evil regime? Why aren't you stepping up and helping the beautiful people of Iran who wants to be free? Why are you so in hatred of Donald Trump so much that you would allow Iranians to die at the hands of an evil Islamic and not step up the plate in the system?
For somebody who says he's a pastor, you don't have a very Christian attitude to people in debate, do you? I think we'll end it there. Thank you very much indeed. No, enough. We've heard enough derangement, to use the word that he used there. I mean, Simon, look, you can't reason with people like this, can you?
They're not set to receive. They're not set to engage in a serious-minded conversation. They're only set to transmit.
Let's talk about what just happened in that interview, because it was not just a heated exchange between a British journalist and an American pastor. It was a live demonstration of what happens when blind loyalty to a single man replaces every principle, every fact, every ounce of common sense, and apparently every value that a man of God is supposed to represent. Start with the King of England comment, because it set the tone for everything that followed, and it needs to be called out for exactly what it was. Pastor Mark Burns sat on British television, a guest on someone else's platform in someone else's country, and told the King of England to stick to kissing babies. The King of England, the head of state of one of America's oldest and most loyal allies. A man who just delivered a speech reaffirming the importance of the UK-US relationship at a moment of genuine global tension. And Pastor Mark Burns, who called it an honor that the king visited America, in the same breath told him to stay in his lane and kiss babies. Then when the host called it out as an insult, Burns had the audacity to tell the host he might be a little slow in understanding what was said, a little slow, on live television to a British journalist, about a comment directed at the British king on a British broadcast. This is the faith advisor to the President of the United States. Let that register for a moment. The NATO argument is where Burns revealed that he does not understand the organization he is lecturing the UK about, and it needs to be corrected clearly and completely. NATO is a defensive alliance. Article 5, the cornerstone of the entire organization, states that an attack on one member is considered an attack on all members. It is a mutual defense pact. It is not a mutual offense pact. It is not a blank check that authorizes any member nation to launch a war of choice and then demand every other member nation join in simply because the first nation decided to act. The United States did not invoke Article 5 before attacking Iran. The United States did not consult NATO before attacking Iran. The United States did not bring NATO allies into the planning, the intelligence assessment, or the decision-making process before attacking Iran. And now Pastor Mark Burns is on British television demanding to know why the UK has not sent naval support. For a war they were not consulted about. For a war that was not a defensive action against an attack on a NATO member. For a war that the United States launched unilaterally with Israel and then expected its allies to show up and clean up the consequences of. Britain was never brought into the discussion. Britain was never brought into the negotiations. Britain was simply expected to follow. And when Britain exercised its sovereign right as an independent democratic nation to decide it would not participate in a war it had no part in planning, Pastor Mark Burns called it a betrayal. That is not how alliances work. That is how a bully expects his friends to behave. The 9/11 point is the one that silences every argument Burns made, and the host made it perfectly. After 9/11, when America was attacked on its own soil, Britain was there. British soldiers went to Afghanistan. British soldiers fought alongside American soldiers. British soldiers died alongside American soldiers. And what did Donald Trump say about Britain's contribution to that effort? He stood back a little bit. Those are his words about the country whose soldiers gave their lives in service of an alliance that America is now demanding unconditional loyalty from. He disrespected the sacrifice of British soldiers who died fighting America's war. And now his pastor is on British television asking why Britain is not doing more. The audacity of that position is genuinely breathtaking. The Iranian people argument is the one that exposes the entire operation as a contradiction that Burns either cannot see or is choosing to ignore. He sat there and said Donald Trump is saving the Iranian people. Donald Trump is liberating the Iranian people. Donald Trump went into Iran out of love for the Iranian people. And I need to ask one simple question. Does Pastor Mark Burns remember the tweet? Because I do. The tweet that said an entire civilization will die tonight. An entire civilization. Those are not the words of a man who loves the Iranian people. Those are not the words of a liberator. Those are not the words of someone who went to war to free a people from oppression. Those are the words of a man who threatened to wipe out a nation of 90 million human beings in a single night. And Pastor Mark Burns, the faith advisor, the man of God, the pastor, is sitting on television telling us this is about saving lives. They think we are stupid. They think we do not remember. They think we do not have receipts. We have receipts, and this channel is going to use them every single time. The Christian faith dimension of this is the one I feel most strongly about, and I am going to say it directly because it needs to be said. I grew up in church. I know what a pastor is supposed to represent. I know what the faith is supposed to look like when it is lived out in real time. And nothing, absolutely nothing about the way Pastor Mark Burns speaks, argues, insults, and performs his loyalty to a political figure looks anything like the Christianity I grew up understanding. Telling a journalist he might be a little slow is not Christian. Accusing an entire country of loving dead Iranians is not Christian. Defending a war that has killed civilians, closed a strait, spiked global food prices, and left families grieving across multiple nations, and calling that liberation is not Christian. The Pope said it. The Pope, the leader of the largest Christian denomination on earth, spoke out against this war and against the glorification of political violence. And Pastor Mark Burns and people like him called the Pope wrong. Think about that. The Pope is wrong, but Donald Trump is right. That is not faith. That is idolatry with a flag draped over it. The hung-up ending is the most honest moment in the entire interview, and I want to give Ian Dale credit for it, even though, as the original creator correctly pointed out, he is not someone who always gets things right. In this moment, he got it exactly right. He sat there, he listened, he challenged, he pushed back with facts. And when Burns accused the entire United Kingdom of loving dead Iranians, of being so consumed with hatred for Donald Trump that they would let people die, Ian Dale made a simple observation. For someone who says he is a pastor, you do not have a very Christian attitude to people. And then he ended it, not angrily, not dramatically, just enough. We have heard enough derangement. And he was right. Because there is a point in every conversation where continuing it gives more oxygen to the derangement than the truth can counteract. Ian Dale found that point and he acted on it. Here is the bottom line, and it is the reason I started this channel. I love this country, the United States of America. I love what it is supposed to stand for. I love the idea of it. And watching Pastor Mark Burns represent us on international television, insulting allies, mangling the definition of NATO, ignoring documented quotes, and calling himself a man of God while doing all of it, makes me furious. Not because I hate Donald Trump, not because I am politically motivated by party loyalty, but because the world is watching, and what they are seeing is not the great nation I know we can be. What they are seeing is a faith advisor who forgot his faith, a political loyalist who forgot his country, and a growing movement of people who have traded their critical thinking for the approval of one man. That is what this channel is here to address. Every single video, every single time, with facts, with receipts, with the kind of honest commentary that does not bend for anybody. If you believe this country deserves better than what we just watched, like this video, subscribe to Justin Speaks, and come back because we are just getting started and we have a lot of ground to cover. See you in the next one.